Do you ever just feel like you're totally drowning in diet advice? Like one day carbs are evil, the next day they're fine.
Oh, absolutely. And then your friend shares some random article on social media claiming, I don't know, celery juice cures everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's enough to make you want to just give up and eat cereal for dinner every night.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do you actually sort through all this noise and make decent choices without feeling completely overwhelmed?
That's the big question, isn't it? And that's what we're really digging into today.
We've got a whole stack of research and discussions here trying to unpack why food is so complicated now, why certain messages stick, how marketing messes with us.
We look at a lot, including some really interesting stuff from a National Academy's workshop. The goal really is to figure out how communication, or maybe miscommunication, shapes what we think and do about food.
Right. So our mission is basically to pull out some practical stuff for you, how to navigate this confusing landscape, understand the manipulation maybe, and just feel a bit more confident and less stressed about food choices. Sound good?
Sounds like a plan. Where do we start?
Let's start with this idea of food well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Sonia Greer brought this up, and it's about way more than just nutrients.
Right, it's not just fuel. Food is tangled up with emotions, right? Love, comfort, connection.
Totally. Like Greer mentioned food as a gift. Think about comfort food, family recipes.
Yeah.
That stuff goes deep. It's not just calories in, calories out.
Yeah, those emotional ties are powerful. So recognizing that is maybe step one, but then you've got all these other things pulling at you when you decide what to eat.
Oh yeah, like how you're raised, what's advertised constantly, what's actually available and affordable where you live.
And policies too. It's a whole complex web. Knowledge alone, knowing what's healthy, often isn't the main driver, let's be honest.
Not at all. Which kind of leads into Cynthia Barr's perspective on food literacy, connecting it to health literacy.
Yeah, she defined it as not just knowing stuff, but having the skills to find, understand, and actually use food information.
But here's the catch. She pointed out our decisions.
Often.
Super emotional, not purely rational.
Definitely. You can know broccoli is good for you, but sometimes you just need that chocolate. It's not always logical.
And Bao talked about this communication gap, between the experts who have all the data and us, the regular people just trying to eat lunch.
Exactly. The experts might focus on the science, the nutrients, but effective communication, she argued, needs to start with the audience.
Like, what are your actual needs? What's your life like? What do you already believe or worry about when it comes to food? Not just pushing expert messages out into the void.
It flips the script. Instead of here's what you should know, it's what do you need to know and how can we make it make sense for you?
Which ties into the whole irrational decision thing. Bao brought up Daniel Kahneman's work on cognitive biases.
Right, those mental shortcuts our brains take. They're efficient, but sometimes lead to choices that don't look rational from the outside.
But there's often an underlying reason based on how we're wired to think. It's not necessarily that we're being illogical on purpose, it's just how our brains process things, especially under pressure or when overwhelmed.
Precisely. Those quick, intuitive judgments can be powerful, especially with something as fundamental as food.
Okay, so let's pause for a sec. Based on this first part, what are some actual, actionable takeaways for people listening?
Good idea. How-to time.
All right, first one, maybe start thinking about your own relationship with food beyond just healthy or unhealthy. What are those emotional connections you have, good or bad? What does food mean to you besides fuel?
Yeah, acknowledging that emotional side is huge. Second, recognize all the other influences. It's not just nutrition facts. Think about your environment, who you eat with, maybe how you grew up talking about food. It all plays a part.
Definitely. And third, be aware that food marketing is specifically designed to hit your emotions and your identity. It's not just about information, it's about persuasion, often on a subconscious level. Know the game.
Spot on. Okay, ready to move into pop culture.
God, yes. Let's talk celebrities and detox teas.
Yeah.
Timothy Caulfield studied this pop culture nutrition noise.
Right, it's deafening. You've got celebrities pushing diets or supplements, often with zero solid science behind them, but huge influence.
He used the gluten-free trend as an example, right? How it exploded way beyond the small percentage of people who actually need it medically.
Exactly. Or detoxes, cleanses, things that sound appealing but lack robust evidence. But a celebrity endorses it, and suddenly it's everything.
And Caulfield explained why this happens. It's about these identity packages.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The celebrity endorsement gets tangled up with who we want to be. We see someone we admire promoting something.
And subconsciously think, if I use that product, maybe I'll be like them. That aspirational connection.
Precisely, and social media just pours gasoline on that fire. It amplifies everything. He mentioned Katy Perry and her supplements.
Yeah, like how does public health compete with someone with millions of followers pushing pills.
Stuff. And he gave non-food examples too, like Coco Chanel making tans fashionable, or the Kardashians influencing cosmetic trends. It shows the sheer power celebrities have over lifestyle choices.
Scary stuff. And it becomes part of your identity, right? Like, I'm a person who drinks green smoothies, or I'm paleo.
Exactly. Caulfield called it the Prius effect for food. We use choices to signal things about ourselves. I'm healthy, I'm conscious, whatever.
And once it's tied to your identity, good luck trying to change someone's mind with just facts. It feels like a personal attack.
Which bumps right up against what William Hallman talked about, the general public's grasp of science.
Yeah, he wasn't exactly optimistic, was he? So most people lack basic science literacy to really evaluate new information properly.
It's a barrier. Scientists often communicate with numbers, statistics, technical terms.
While most of us respond better to stories, pictures, emotions, it's like two different languages.
That's the communication friction Hallman described. Different fields use different data, different stats. It gets confusing, even for people trying to understand.
And then he got into those mental models.
Yeah.
The weird ways our brains make intuitive leaps.
Like sympathetic magic. The example of not wanting to eat food that had a stranger's hair in it, even after you take the hair out. Logically, it's fine, but it feels contaminated.
Ugh, yeah, I get that. Or ignoring the dose in toxicology. People hear chemical and think poison, regardless of the amount.
Right. All chemicals are bad is a common intuitive belief, even though everything is chemicals, and the dose makes the poison. It's a fundamental concept that often doesn't land.
And this leads to those catchy food rules that sound right but aren't really science-based. Hallman mentioned Michael Pollan.
The don't eat breakfast cereals that change the color of the milk rule. It has intuitive plausibility. It sounds like good advice tapping into fears about artificial stuff.
But scientifically, it's pretty flimsy. Yet those simple rules stick because they feel right. They're easy to remember.
Exactly. They fit our mental shortcuts, even if they're not accurate.
Okay, another round of takeaways: how to deal with the celebrity noise in our own weird brains.
Let's do it. First, treat health advice from celebrities with extreme skepticism. Remember, they have different motivations, often financial, and their lifestyle is usually not replicable.
Good one. Second, don't automatically buy into simple-sounding food rules just because they're catchy or popular. Question them. Look for the actual science, if there isn't.
And third, be aware of your own gut reactions, that intuitive plausibility thing. It can lead you astray. Try to pause and engage your rational brain before accepting or rejecting food information instantly.
Challenge your own biases. Easier said than done, but worth trying. Okay, so now let's shift to the media landscape itself. It's messy.
Understatement. Brooke Squires talked about how much news consumption has changed. Less traditional media, way more internet, especially mobile.
We're all glued to our phones. But she made an interesting point. We might spend a lot of time on mobile sites, but maybe less engaged time, like quick scrolling.
Yeah, the quality of attention might be different. And social media is huge, obviously. People often pay more attention to what friends share than actual news sources, which is interesting.
Concerning, maybe. Which leads straight into trust. Who do we actually trust for food info?
Squires cited Frewer and colleagues on this. Trust builders, things like responsibility, accuracy, showing you care about public well-being, pretty straightforward.
And trust killers, vested interests, distorting facts, basically being shady. Also not surprising.
But trust isn't uniform. People might distrust info on GMOs, but trust advice on avoiding food poisoning. It's topic specific.
And there's just so much CH information. Carol Burr-Bredbender said, we're literally swimming in a sea of messages.
Especially online and from apps. And more people are actively looking for nutrition info, which is good, but they're hitting this wall of
communication friction, as she called it.
Exactly. One source of friction, jargon. Health professionals using technical terms that mean nothing to most people. Dietary fiber versus keeps you regular.
Yeah, speak plain English. And inconsistency kills clarity too, right? Different terms, different formats for serving sizes or whatever. It's confusing.
Totally. And another friction point she mentioned was overly definitive language from scientists.
Wait, being too certain makes people less trustful. That seems backward.
Right. But she suggested that hedging, expressing uncertainty, acknowledging limitations can actually increase trustworthiness. It sounds more honest, more realistic about how science works.
Huh. Okay, that makes sense. Science evolves. Admitting you don't have all the answers might be better.
And she also found that two-sided refutational messages are really effective.
Meaning?
You present a common myth or misconception, and then you clearly refute it with evidence. Apparently, that's more persuasive than just listing pros or cons or only giving one side.
Interesting, like tackling misinformation head on.
Exactly. And she also hammered home the need for specific, actionable advice, not just eat healthy, but how.
Yes, vague recommendations are useless. Eat more vegetables. Okay, like which ones? How? Cooked? Raw? Tell me what to do.
And personalization is key. Messages need to connect with your motivations. Often that's about quality of life, feeling better now.
And taste. She said taste gets ignored in health messages all the time, which is crazy because it's usually the #1 driver for food choice.
Think. Plus, clearly defining the personal benefit. Why should you care? What's in it for you?
And finally, she pointed out a big gap. Not using behavior change theory enough, or not pilot testing messages before rolling them out widely.
Yeah, just throwing messages out there without understanding how people actually change habits, or if the message even makes sense to the target audience. Seems like a recipe for failure.
Okay, takeaways for navigating this media mess.
Number 1, critically evaluate your sources. Where is this information coming from? Who's behind it? What might their agenda be? Be a detective.
Good advice. Second, if you encounter jargon or confusing info, don't just glaze over. Ask for clarification. Look it up. Don't be afraid to say, I don't get it.
Definitely. And third, look for messages that are relevant to you. Do they explain the personal benefit clearly? Do they offer specific practical steps you can actually take? Seek out clarity and actionability.
Makes sense. Okay, last section. How do we actually move towards better food literacy and communication? Strategies that work.
Right. Statler-Nagel talked about the got milk fallacy.
Meaning the catchy slogan isn't enough.
Exactly. A great message is useless if the rest of the system doesn't support the behavior. You need the whole value chain involved, retailers, producers, everyone.
So you can't just advertise healthy food if it's not available, affordable, or appealing where people actually shop.
Precisely. The environment matters hugely, which ties into Linda Newhouser's work on participatory design.
This was fascinating, involving the actual audience in designing the solution.
Yes, she gave that amazing example from Mauritania with the vaccination program. It only worked when they stopped dictating and actually listened to the community, even the camel drivers.
They had crucial insights the experts missed. And the Egg Cafeteria for Me project, getting students and everyone involved in fixing school lunches.
It's about co-creation, thinking big, trying things out, iterating based on real feedback, not just top-down mandates.
And Kristen Harrison's perspective really hit home, meeting people where they are.
Her personal story was so powerful, juggling healthy eating goals with the intense demands of caring for kids with autism.
Yeah, it showed how what looks like lack of knowledge or willpower is often just life being overwhelming, other priorities taking over.
And her gifts versus chores concept. How healthy behaviors need to feel good, rewarding, not just another obligation.
So true. If exercise or healthy eating feels like punishment, you won't stick with it. It needs to add value now.
Lefebvre added to this, emphasizing layering messages, creating a whole communications environment rather than relying on single messages, consistency across different touchpoints.
And let's be real, Roller brought up the elephant in the room, profit.
Yeah. Marketing healthy food needs to be profitable for businesses, otherwise the incentives just aren't there in our current system. It's a practical barrier.
Capitalism. And finally, the sensitive topic of obesity.
Right. Bauer and Bird-Bredbenner noted it can be a loaded term. Johnson Askew shared success focusing on parents' desire to be good parents, which was more motivating than focusing just on weight.
Finding the right frame, the right motivation, that resonates without triggering shame.
Exactly. It's about understanding the audience deeply.
Okay, final round of actionable thoughts from all this.
Let's wrap it up. First, think beyond your own choices. How can you support changes in your community's food environment to make healthy options easier for everyone? Advocate for bigger picture stuff.
Nice one. Second, focus on making healthy changes feel like a gift, not a chore. What feels good, sustainable, and actually enjoyable for you. Find the pleasure in it.
And third, be mindful of language around weight and health. Avoid judgment, practice empathy. Everyone's got their own struggles with food.
And this goes a long way. Okay, so wrapping this whole deep dive up.
Yeah, look, navigating food information is tough, no doubt about it. But hopefully understanding these influences, the marketing, the emotions, the communication challenges, helps you feel more empowered.
It's about becoming a more critical consumer of information, right? Less likely to get swept away by the latest trend or scare tactic.
Exactly, developing that internal compass.
So in this constant storm of food messages, how can you really listen to your own internal signals? How do you define and cultivate your personal food well-being beyond all the external noise?
Something to chew on. And remember, we've only scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore if you're interested.